So let me start straight. No warm-up, no filler, no hype for the sake of hype. Because what I'm about to say needs to be understood, not blindly believed. There's a lot of noise right now in crypto, and when people hear phrases like XRP overtaking Bitcoin, emotions spike instantly. Some people get excited, some get angry, and some immediately tune out. But emotion isn't where clarity lives. Understanding is. Right now, attention is building around XRP in a way that feels different, not louder, different. And that difference matters. This isn't about price charts flashing green. It's about positioning, structure, and timing. And when you hear talk about insiders, institutions, or employees at major firms like Grayscale sharing perspectives, it's important to slow down and separate implication from imagination. Before we go further, understand this clearly. This video is for informational and educational purposes only. Nothing here is financial advice. There are no guarantees, no predictions, and no promises. Markets are uncertain by nature. What we're doing here is examining signals, not declaring outcomes. Now, here's where things get interesting. Bitcoin and XRP were not designed to compete in the same way people assume they do. Bitcoin was built as a decentralized store of value, resistant to censorship, independent of institutions. XRP was designed to move value efficiently within the existing financial system. That distinction alone changes how each asset fits into the future. So when people ask whether XRP could overtake Bitcoin, the first question should be, overtake in what sense? Market cap, transaction volume, utility, institutional usage, narrative dominance. These are not the same thing, and confusing them leads to bad conclusions. Bitcoin's strength is scarcity and decentralization. XRP's strength is speed, liquidity, efficiency, and integration potential. Those strengths don't cancel each other out. They serve different layers of the financial world. What has people paying attention right now is not a sudden announcement or a dramatic headline. It's a pattern, a slow convergence of regulatory clarity, institutional readiness, and infrastructure maturity. These things don't explode into existence overnight. They build quietly. Grayscale, like other institutional players, operates on long timelines. Employees within these organizations don't think in terms of tomorrow's candle. They think in terms of years, frameworks, and risk exposure. When perspectives from inside these environments circulate, they should be interpreted as insight into mindset, not as secret instructions or guaranteed outcomes. There's a huge difference between something is being discussed and something is about to happen. Markets often confuse the two. One of the biggest mistakes retail participants make is assuming institutions move emotionally or impulsively. They don't. Institutions move when uncertainty is reduced to a level they can quantify. Regulation, compliance, custody, liquidity. These are not exciting words, but they are the words that move serious capital. XRP's long and very public regulatory journey has forced it into a position most crypto assets never had to face. It's been examined, debated, challenged, and stress tested in ways that few digital assets have experienced. That process doesn't guarantee success, but it does create familiarity, and familiarity matters to institutions. Bitcoin, on the other hand, benefits from being simple in its narrative. Digital gold, limited supply, decentralized. That clarity has value, but simplicity can also limit flexibility. The idea that one asset must replace another is a very retail way of thinking. Financial systems don't usually work that way. They layer, they specialize, they coexist. What's changing now is that the crypto market is slowly shifting from ideology to functionality. Early adoption was driven by belief. The next phase is driven by usefulness, and usefulness doesn't care about tribal loyalty. When institutions evaluate blockchain technology, they don't ask which community is louder. They ask which system solves a problem efficiently, reliably, and within regulatory boundaries. That's where XRP enters the conversation, not as a Bitcoin killer, but as a tool. The phrase overtake Bitcoin creates suspense because it challenges a mental hierarchy people are emotionally attached to. But markets don't operate on emotional hierarchy. They operate on capital allocation. Capital flows where friction is reduced. XRP's ability to move value quickly with low cost and high liquidity makes it attractive in specific contexts. Bitcoin's ability to store value securely makes it attractive in others. These contexts can grow independently. Another important point, market capitalization is not a scoreboard of importance. It's a snapshot of valuation based on current perception. Perception changes faster than infrastructure, but infrastructure lasts longer. When you hear about internal conversations at firms like Grayscale, what you're really hearing about is evolving perception, not decisions, not outcomes. Perception. And perception is the first domino, not the last. Crypto markets are still early enough that narratives can shift dramatically, but they're mature enough now that pure hype is losing effectiveness. That's why conversations are becoming quieter, more analytical, more cautious. If you're still watching, take a second and tap the like button. It helps content like this reach people who want understanding, not noise. And subscribe if you want calm, policy-safe analysis without sensational promises. Now, here's the part most people don't want to hear. Even if XRP grows significantly in institutional relevance, that doesn't mean Bitcoin fails. Even if Bitcoin maintains dominance as a store of value, that doesn't mean XRP stagnates. Markets are not zero-sum in the way social media frames them. What creates the illusion of competition is price charts. What creates actual competition is overlapping utility. And right now, Bitcoin and XRP overlap far less than people think. The real shift happening is not asset versus asset, it's speculation versus application. As the market matures, assets designed for real-world integration will be evaluated differently than assets designed for ideological purity. Both have value, both attract different participants. That's why extreme predictions rarely age well. Reality tends to be more complex, slower, and less dramatic, but far more impactful. So instead of asking whether XRP is ready to overtake Bitcoin, a better question is whether the financial world is ready to use multiple digital assets for different purposes at scale. That transition doesn't happen with a headline, it happens with systems. And systems don't announce themselves, they just start working. And when systems start working quietly, that's usually when the public conversation lags the furthest behind reality. People tend to notice movement only when it shows up on a chart, but by the time price reflects a shift, most of the structural decisions have already been made. That delay between cause and effect is where confusion lives, and it's also where most emotional reactions are born. This is why the idea of something being leaked needs to be handled carefully. A leak doesn't always mean secret plans or guaranteed outcomes. Often it simply means a glimpse into how people inside large organizations are thinking about risk, opportunity, and long-term positioning. Thinking is not action. Discussion is not deployment, but discussion is still meaningful because it signals what is being taken seriously. Inside institutions like Grayscale, conversations are rarely about hype, they're about exposure, fiduciary responsibility, and alignment with regulatory expectations. These organizations don't chase trends, they analyze frameworks. When their internal perspectives evolve, it usually reflects a broader shift in how the market itself is maturing. What's happening right now across crypto is a gradual transition from experimental to evaluative. Early phases were about proving something could exist. Now the question is whether it can operate responsibly at scale. That's a very different challenge. Bitcoin has already passed that test in one dimension: resilience. It has survived attacks, skepticism, volatility, and time. That gives it credibility as a store of value. But the next phase of financial evolution isn't just about storing value, it's about moving it efficiently. This is where XRP's design becomes relevant in a way that feels less theoretical and more practical. Speed, liquidity, and interoperability are not abstract ideals. They are requirements for modern financial systems, and modern systems don't replace everything at once. They integrate. Integration is a slow process. It requires compatibility with legacy systems, regulatory clarity, and operational reliability. That's why projects built for integration often appear boring compared to projects built for speculation. Boring, however, is not a weakness in finance. Boring is what institutions prefer.